Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Left Hook podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, James.
Hello,
and
everyone.
Back by popular demand, we have our special guest, Habibah, with us.
Oh, hello everyone.
Yes.
Good to be back.
Thank you very much for coming back. We greatly enjoyed having you on last time, and it was a massive insight, I guess, and very inspirational to myself and to Jordie as well. Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. It's
Yeah.
good to talk about these things.
No,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah.
So, you've been busy, from what I hear.
Oh, so much has happened since last time.
Yes.
You did a little trip to Victoria, went to the Land Forces Expo, where there was a massive demonstration out the front. So, I think we should want to begin with that.
I do. Well, as
Yeah.
you know, as you saw on the news that one of the higher rank cops went out and said some people have come interstate, dirty, filthy, disgusting animals to cause havoc and anarchy. And
You being one of them.
he was talking about me, naturally.
course.
Yeah.
I was there. I went to Victoria. I participated in Disrupt Land Forces, which to me, now that I reflect on it, it's just one of the biggest displays of collective rejection of the imperialist war machine that Australia is unfortunately knees deep in. Very much so. Land Forces is Australia's biggest weapons expo, and all these different weapons companies come together and show each other their new little toys. They sell it to each other. It's obviously very disgusting. The Premier of Victoria went and said this is going to be a $40 million economic boost for our state. Ooh. And university vice-chancellors all across the country attended. Anthony Albanese was there. What's his face? The name of the defence minister? Chris
Pine.
Chris Pine.
He's an ex-defence.
Ex-defence.
Yes. I believe he works for one of
Minister.
the companies
Yes.
that's there
He's
now.
on the board of a munitions company now.
Yes.
Yeah.
He commented, well, hey, this is why we have these conferences, so people have the right to protest, because you wouldn't be able to protest in Beijing.
Thanks, Chris Pine.
Meanwhile, outside, utmost police brutality.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm really proud I participated in that. It was so beautiful to see people, how they organized themselves. A black bloc where they stood in front of the police and they formed their own barricade in the front of the police and pushed delegates trying to go away. And these delegates had to forcibly be walked away and shamed. And I think that's a really responsible way to send a message to the government and also to these people that they're not welcome, that we reject this, and we wanted to make it uncomfortable for them. It was amazing. It was amazing. I'm so proud of everyone there. I'm so sorry to all the people that experience police brutality, but at the same time, all power to you. Well, you guys saw on the news. I want to see what your perception was seeing it on the news as someone not participating.
It was very... it was obviously painted in a very specific light, so that obviously the protesters were demonised quite heavily, obviously, and there didn't seem to be much in terms of essentially having them express their point of view on it. And any time there was like an interview with a protester or something like that, it was very much kind of brushed over. Like that wasn't the main subject of the reporting, obviously, which was interesting. But I believe there were, I'm not sure the exact numbers of actual protesters, but I believe there were over 100 people injured. Was that
Yes,
correct?
I think still a few more, to be honest. That
Yeah.
was just like the conservative estimate that it was
Yeah.
100 people.
That's
So
crazy.
A lot of the videos that I saw were chaotic scenes, tear gas, and they're obviously trying to frame it as a very kind of violent demonstration.
Yeah, violent anarchists disrupting our peaceful weapons
Havoc.
conference. Yeah, of course. Yeah. No,
If you two didn't already have a lot of knowledge and interest in the Palestine cause and the protests happening over the past year in Australia, and it was something that you'd never taken interest in learning about, if you were just a spectator, a regular Aussie sitting watching the 5 o'clock news, and you saw that, would you think the news had succeeded in painting the protesters in a negative light and as the problem?
absolutely. Yeah, I think so.
There was also no context given to what the event was. So they said the Land Forces Expo, but it's like, well, this is a weapons expo. Why are these demonstrators here? What are their demands? And they probably didn't actually discuss the fact that there was a whole variation of groups there. There was Extinction Rebellion, and then obviously you were there, and different groups. So they just tried to kind of paint it with a very broad brush.
As the media does.
Yeah.
As the media is doing with the genocide.
Of course.
Oh,
yeah.
babies are dying, but actually Hamas. Let's focus on them.
Do you condemn Hamas? They said it. They said it. Yeah. No, it was. It was definitely, I have to say, quite. What would be the term? Quite inspiring to see that obviously the awareness has continually grown, and I think obviously in the context of the ongoing genocide as well, people are still protesting, and that's probably one of the reasons why people did come out in force to, in such great numbers to an event like that.
That's true. It was quite epic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then, day one.
Day one.
Walk us through it.
Okay. Well, I arrived a few days before it started because I wanted to experience the Sunday rallies there.
Mm-hmm.
The regular Sunday rallies started off in front of State Library. It was really nice. A lot of powerful speakers. I was a stranger in the crowd of many, and somewhat felt really comfortable in that because here in Adelaide, we're a lot smaller and a lot of people know each other, those in the activist scene and those that have been working for Palestine for the past few years. So it was really good to be anonymous and remain anonymous. And I was just looking at all these different types of people. There was a prayer corner. There were people selling kafirs and Palestine. There were people giving out Palestine merch for free. And it just felt energetic. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, this is my vibe. And then we started marching. So I'm just marching by myself, alone. It was really nice to remain anonymous and be just a person in the crowd. And then the man at the front, he is like the one leading the chants, and they've got this big megaphone machine where like 5 or 6 megaphones are pointing out everywhere. And he's staring at me. I'm like, oh, why is he staring? It's all right. He's like, and then he comes up to me. He's like, are you Habibah? I'm like, oh, yeah, yes, I am. He's like, you come with me. Awesome. March up front with me. And so I didn't want to be rude. I'm like, okay. And then I was marching up front with him, and then he hands me the microphone. He's like, okay, now you chant. All right, mind you, before I went and left to Melbourne, I promised my mum I'm going to stay low-key.
Of course. And then she sees the photo of you in the newspaper.
So promise broken already, day one.
Course, yeah.
Protest one. I chanted a little bit and then I immediately handed it back. I'm like, I just want to stand in solidarity. Thank you so much. Like, it was an honor that you presented this microphone to me. And it was beautiful. The protest ended, and then me not knowing what was happening, there was another rally sort of started. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me just fully immerse myself in this. So it turns out all these different factions that come together. This one was called the Breakaway, where once the protest finishes, they just continue protesting. So they continue marching up and down that long road, and police have to look after it. Police have to keep the road blocked off. So it was disruption. Although it was smaller, it was still a decent size. So I did that. I think that day I walked 30,000 steps, really.
Wow.
In the city.
Good effort.
Good exercise.
Yeah.
Good exercise. Afterwards, I went to Camp Sovereignty to experience that for the first time. It was really rainy, but it was beautiful. So day one.
And so what's Camp Sovereignty?
Camp Sovereignty is a camp set up by an Indigenous elder in Victorian Parklands. And I'm very, very sorry. I do not know the name.
No, that's right.
But insert screenshot of what it
is,
please.
We'll put one over, of course.
Yeah. Where Indigenous people gather, and essentially they're protesting invasion of their land, and they're protesting more oil and gas rigs being set up, and they're protesting that park is very sacred to them, that certain park that it's set up on, and it's turned into somewhat of a tourist commercial site rather than allowing them to maintain control over that space. And for the past year, activists after Palestine rallies have gathered there to listen to Indigenous elders tell stories and plan and organize. And free food is given out. People cook for each other. It's very wholesome, very community. At the same time, it is a form of protest just by functioning.
Yeah.
Went to Camp Sovereignty. Rain. Oh, my goodness. Stood in the rain, the mud. I'm like, yeah, I've committed to this. I'm here now. And then went home afterwards. That was day one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
I have to think about what day 2 is.
No, that's all right. Yeah.
So was this on a Sunday?
That was on a Sunday.
That was on the Sunday. Okay. So when was the exhibition?
Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday and Thursday.
And that was the first day of the demonstrations on Wednesday, and then they continued
the 12th and 13th
for Thursday. Yeah.
Okay. Come Monday and Tuesday, you go on the Disrupt Land Forces website. You see that the location hub for people to gather is Seafarers. Seafarers had very generously allowed us to use their space, which is a sort of accommodation centre for people, for sailors, that when they come and dock in Melbourne, to go there and stay. Beautiful building, really historic. I wish, I want to study that place.
Yeah.
And I want to learn to sail, but that's a different thing.
So they provided the accommodation?
They provided the accommodation.
Okay.
And we provided our own meals. So there was a group of people delegated to cook meals. And lunch and dinner was provided. and lots of different trainings prior to Wednesday kicking off, such as legal briefings, such as how to gather in pods, how to fight bail conditions. All these different little tactics and strategies. But people would meet each other, get to know each other, potentially form a pod, which is a group of people that during the duration of the protest would stick together. So somehow I ended up podless, but that's okay because I think I missed every time a pod was being formed, and that was fine. I wasn't feeling bad about that. I knew people that were going to be there, and also I kind of went into Melbourne with the headspace and mindset that I'm going to be independent. Trainings were great. I think it's really beneficial that these sort of trainings are provided to protesters and activists before an action kicks off.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I think it probably as well assists in having kind of unifying everyone, again, in terms of strategy, tactics and, mindset, what to do, what not to do, etc., and how to obviously best protest the cause effectively. Yeah.
Exactly. And at night time, there would be workshops and presentations regarding previous movements. Activists that have been involved in Kanaki, freeing Kanaki from occupation, French occupation, came and gave really powerful speeches. It was heartfelt and sentimental. And all the while, there was police drones buzzing overhead of us.
Really?
Wow. All the while, anyone that would enter and exit seafarers, police would be out there taking photos.
Wow.
Because, mind you, Victorian Supreme Court gave them special powers, which means based on pure suspicion, they can arrest someone, which means stop and search, which... knowing VicPol, they can exercise in any way they please.
So even if you hadn't done anything wrong, if you were seen or, associated with these groups, they could still have the right to arrest you.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They were probably testing facial recognition and biometric systems that the Israeli Defence Force had probably
sold them.
They probably were. It happened to me. I was just walking on the street, police car pulled up, rolled down a window, took out a camera, snap, drove off. I'm
Say
like,
cheese, Habibah.
Cheese. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. For me, I made it a political choice to not wear a face covering.
Okay.
A lot of people chose to hide their identity, and I fully understand and respect that. I chose to not because who I am now, and especially with Zionist and police antagonism and discrimination and intimidation, me being there is also a political statement. It's a form of protest. It's a form of empowering what I believe in, what I'm trying to do. So I'm not here to hide anything. I'm not here to conceal my identity. I'm here fully practicing each and every right I have as a human, as also as someone that's anti-war and anti-imperialist, to be there.
Good on you.
Thank you.
You definitely have a public profile as well now, so it's good you can express yourself and that you're confident to do that. I think it's very important as well.
That's right. It was very intentional not to cover my face.
Yeah.
Very intentional. Yeah.
I did see, though, however, in the photo you had some safety glasses on. Was that obviously kind of a response so to prevent any damage from getting pepper sprayed or tear gas? That was the idea behind that?
One really good thing the organisers did was provide safety equipment to the people that were protesting, such as safety goggles, because we anticipated police to use pepper spray on us. That was one thing. Everyone had access to that. We had little bags that pods would have with them, and in these bags were such things as saline solution to decontaminate, a paper that basically outlines your legal rights. Really important things.
This was all provided by the organisers?
Yes.
Correct? Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And some anonymous people, such as rape whistles, and that was used to throw back at cops.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So from what you're saying, this is really planned and well organised. This isn't just a spontaneous rabble like the media likes to portray it.
A lot of thought went into this. A lot of intention went into this, and a lot of consent for whoever participated. They were, number one, very informed of what could happen being on the ground, how police would treat us, the media would be there. Everything was put on the table, and everyone 100% committed, which is what I so respect.
Yeah. Because
when it happened on the day, it was intense, it was ongoing. It was really, really difficult to, I suppose, look after each other, and yet we did.
So, on day one, you went there in large groups by yourself with a few friends, and what was the strategy going in to begin with?
So, funny thing, already cops tried to deter us. All public transport towards the city cancelled in the morning.
Really?
Yes. Wow. People had to get creative. I had to catch an Uber into the city. 6 a.m. picket, that's when it started.
Wow.
because
So they cancelled all public transport
yes,
in anticipation of this demonstration.
which is quite annoying and frustrating, especially for people that just need to get into the city to work and do other things.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
it
guess
also
that shows
violates-
how, I was going to say, how dedicated they are to disrupt the protest, is that they'll disrupt however many people's, day-to-day
Well,
lives.
yeah, and it violates our supposed freedoms of assembly as
Of
well.
course,
that
yeah.
they can just cancel public transport so people can't do that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So they've cancelled the public transport. You've caught an Uber into the city.
Into seafarers where people were gathered, and then I found a small group of people. They're like, all right, come with us. We had our bags. Everyone was ready. We went and attended, stood there 6 a.m. It was already buzzing. A few hundred people, I would say nearly 600, 700 people were already there from 6 a.m. The sun had not risen. Police had a massive barricade. They were in full riot gear. I even believe ADF were there. Oh, no. ADF was there. Federal police were there, and
Goodness.
VicPol.
Yeah.
They were all out in full force. And it was powerful because people were ready. When I spoke to people, when I had conversations, I saw people from Adelaide that I didn't know were going to be there. We bumped into each other. Oh, hello, how are you? All the good things. All the cute little formalities.
Yeah.
And the purpose of assembling at 6 a.m. was because we wanted to be there before the conference kicks off. We wanted to be there to greet the stupid, bloodthirsty delegates
Yes, of course.
to enter.
Yeah.
And it was full disruption mode turned on. And then we were there chanting. Everyone was buzzing. We then marched to the other entrance, which, I don't know Melbourne streets very well, but basically I know we took over a bridge that it had the left-wing protesters had not had access to in their protests for, I think, was quoted 20, 30 years. For the first time, we marched on that bridge.
Wow.
And it was empowering. Went to the other side, and that's when the black bloc formed. So the police line, and then our own people in complete black, covering up, as they should, formed the line, and that's when, as delegates tried to go in, shoved them back. Them back. At this point, police are like, all right, we're going to step in. They started physically attacking and hitting those people. And
the people trying to get in, obviously, after their entry was disrupted, did they have to go around the back, or could they just end up not actually getting into the expo?
they did. I'm not too sure because they would have found another way, but it would have disrupted them. Later,
Absolutely.
they had to be humiliated first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they actually have any moral qualms with doing that. Like, do you think they actually go in there and they think, do you think they justify it to themselves, or do you think they realise, no, I'm just a piece of garbage, and I'm, and my job is supporting, all these horrors that we inflict on the world daily, and these people are, maybe the protesters are right, but I don't care. Like, what, or do you think they justify it to themselves?
Well, a few of them swore at us.
Yeah.
A few of them told us to get a life. I had the pleasure of yelling at them many times, and they would. I would be ignored completely.
Yeah.
Blank face.
Yeah.
Which, really, like, if I was in that situation, I don't think I'd maintain that resolve, but they did.
Yeah, goodness, yeah.
I know.
I don't think these people have many moral quandaries.
Like,
No.
They obviously must know
No.
it. Yeah, that's the interesting thing.
So the police begin to get physical.
Get physical.
Yeah.
Get physical. At this point, we decide that, okay, time to go back to the other entrance because all these delegates are going to the other entrance. So we do another march. Firstly, we block an intersection for a hot minute, and then police start kettling us in. But then we broke the kettle line, and it was amazing. Police, I think, were frazzled as well. I think they were quite disorganized, and they couldn't anticipate our next move because it would be full of surprises.
Of course.
And then that's when they took out the batons.
Oh,
They started hitting people.
I do like the idea of you guys being more organised than the police as well. Yeah,
Always.
Always, yeah.
Always. Sometimes I have to quote a police officer the law when I'm about to start the rally because they would be like, oh. I'll be like, look. And then they'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a push and shove.
Push and shove.
This goes back and forth. Does this go on for a couple of hours or?
This goes on, I would say, for half an hour.
Yeah.
And I will say the police brutality you saw in the media was minutes of what was essentially a 10-hour protest. It was so much worse.
Yeah, goodness, wow.
Yeah. And then a breakaway happened where people went to the first main entrance of the convention center. And people also decided to stay back and continue holding up the intersection for an hour or two longer. Eventually they joined us. So back I was one of the people that went back to the main entrance of the convention center. And that's when really, I would say, the most chaotic time started. It was people, as you saw on the news probably, shoving and breaking down and tearing down the man-made fence in front of the convention centre. That's when police did their first round of pepper spray.
Yes.
And so at this point, my goggles were on my head. I see my friend completely point blank get pepper sprayed. So I pull him aside, and then I'm like, I need to help him. I didn't realize I got pepper sprayed too. It was a puff of wind in my face. Me thinking, this is nothing. It's just a puff of wind randomly. Because it's not meant to sting at first. It doesn't. It starts burning later.
Oh, goodness.
Pull my friend aside. We have to break another police horse line. We get to the area where the river is and the bridge on that side. And I set him down on the grass. I'm like, all right, I'm going to decontaminate you. He has his decontamination equipment. He teaches me on the spot how to do it. Continuously, we're getting interrupted because the police are going to start police horses are going to start trampling on us. It's really annoying when you're decontaminating someone to continuously pack up station and then
have to move. Yes,
have to move. Ours took the longest. So at this point, when we finished and I got decontaminated as well, it was 4 of us. The whole group of people, police horse, police line, and I'm like, let me politely ask if they can let us back in. They didn't. They couldn't get less.
Worth a shot anyway.
Worth a shot. And then a current affair rolled in and just captured me arguing with them by myself.
Yes.
So in effect, you've been isolated.
Yes.
You can't get back in.
Yes.
Did you eventually find a way to get back in, or was that sort of the?
Because police had blocked off the other bridge, so we had to make a massive walk.
Yeah.
Finally, they decided to let us. I don't know how or why. So we did. We long walk back to the rally, and then that's when I got creative with disrupting the delegates because I had someone had given me a megaphone.
Yeah.
Walk up to them, threw water on some of them. You have to be rude to these people, and what I mean by that is that these people need to know that they're not on any moral high ground. That we're protesting them on an ethical, political, economic, social level. All of this, and they should be made so uncomfortable because we want to show them they need to rethink their commitment. They need to rethink their priorities and what they're involved in and how easily it can stop. Yes. It can really stop each and every single genocide that we see, each and every single war we see. It actually starts off with such conferences.
Of course. Yeah.
And how much Australia as a country is involved and how much the public are involved. And then suddenly this loud boom. And I think a bomb has went off into the convention centre. I think something has gone wrong.
Oh, no.
Everyone's screaming. The crowd kind of trembles. And then another boom, boom, boom. And then everyone's running. So at this point, I think, we've been bombed. I start running too. Police are running after us. I'm like, they're running for their lives as well. No, they threw stun grenades at us and were running towards us to number one, tackle us, hit us, drag us off.
Far out.
Wow. Yeah, stun grenades were for the first time wherever from Australian police were used. It was loud.
That sounds awful. How many police officers were there to protesters?
There were 2,000 police, I think. Wow. That's what the report said. And as protesters, we were 1,800. Or I think it's reversed. I don't know.
Yeah. So there's a lot of both. A lot of both parties. Oh my goodness. Wow.
So you mentioned that you got the megaphone.
Yes.
Is that where that fantastic photo?
That's where that fantastic photo happened.
With the megaphone and there's just mounted police behind you?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, is that when they set the big bin on fire as well?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So...
Is this in the afternoon, roughly?
At this point, it's 11 a.m.
So we haven't even got to lunchtime yet.
No, we haven't got to lunchtime yet.
Wow, yeah.
It's 11 a.m. The riot squad are running after us. They got their massive shields. It's really scary when they all simultaneously yell, "Move!"
Yeah.
And stun grenades and tear gas were thrown at us first. The police did that. And the Black Bloc were organized enough and smart enough to create a barricade between us and police by setting dumpsters on fire. And that's when the smoke, it was very smoky.
That was, I think, lots of the pictures that we saw on the news were taken of that little segment there.
So the dumpsters were set on fire to basically create a break between the police and you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because we wanted to avoid getting beaten up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the most beautiful sight I've seen.
So it wasn't just pointless vandalism and destruction. It was actually used as a genuine tactic to give you some breathing space.
That's right. And historically, when protests have become violent from police, people have created barricades between police and protesters to protect the crowd. And it's always been some sort of setting something on fire that's not private property, that's not personal property, that is public property. And it's a dumpster.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was created for safety reasons. A line of it was created because at this point police then took out rubber bullets and started shooting point blank at people. And a photographer, a journalist, got his ear blown off, as you've seen.
Yes, I did hear
Yeah.
that. Yeah. That's insane.
The media started getting attacked. We held our ground though, and this is where I'm very, very proud of everyone. It then became a protest against the weapons convention and the industrial war machine and police brutality, which of course it's all tied.
Yes, of course.
They all relate to each other and empower each other.
From what you're telling me, it sounds like the police response, was quite chaotic, and wasn't very organised, I guess. Shall we say?
No. I also know that a lot of police officers were on training that day, and they would be told by their trainer or a sergeant in command to, all right, now you can go and shove that person, or you can take out a baton.
Goodness, yeah.
So it was their playground.
Yeah,
it was
of course.
For them something that they can just use their special powers, express their internalized racism and hatred. I actually wonder if police ever have moral qualms. As we talked about the delegates, if these police ever have moral qualms. Because what's in New South Wales now, they're saying that they're emotionally spent and they don't want to attend the protest anymore.
That's awful. I have all my sympathy when they say that, Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, as the day kept unfolding, the bins have been set on fire. The police you mentioned were using rubber bullets, stun grenades, tear gas. What happened after that?
The rubber bullets just kept coming. It was crazy to witness all these police having massive shields in front of them and then rifles pointed at us and doof, 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 doof. At the same time, we're holding our ground, we're chanting, we're strong, we're empowering each other. Fire, tear gas. At points, I have to stop and cough for 5 minutes and then get back on the megaphone. And then suddenly they're like, ah! And that's when they charge. And that's when the video of me getting pummeled by cops emerges. And that goes viral as well. And really, really grateful I didn't fall into the fire. The police come and extinguish the bins. No one got hurt by any fires. But at this point, police started coming into the ground and skull-dragging protesters, elderly men, which I found really, really disturbing. So I don't think police have moral qualms. I think they love to exercise an iron fist of the state on us because that's where they get their directions from.
Yep.
It was bad. It was bad. At this point, I saw a few journalists get hit as well and shoved down in the process, not intentionally. However, it just goes to show that they're being ruthless. They're not exercising caution when they're using force at all. It's just force.
Do you think that might be because they're inexperienced and they don't know how to handle these situations due to that lack of training, lack of preparation? Or do you think it just comes down to, like you said, they like exercising the power?
I think it's a bit of both, but mostly I think that they've been given immunity and the rights to brutalize protesters. And I feel that this is the purpose of police existing in the first place, is to attack and silence or suppress any sort of threat to the production, the wealth of and the production of wealth in this country. And that's exactly what they did. It was really, really disturbing to look back on footage of that day and see an old man point blank in the face get pepper sprayed only for saying that I'm only standing here. Wow. Knowing full well I only got pepper sprayed a tiny bit and how much that hurt me, what that would have done to him. It was police unleashing absolute lethal force, and I say lethal force because rubber bullets can kill. What you're meant to do with rubber bullets is first shoot it into the ground where it's meant to then bounce off and hit something. But point blank, yes, someone got their ear shot off. People got bruises, people got hospitalized from it.
And like you said as well, especially one thing obviously being young and in good health, but again older people and people with illnesses and maybe disabilities and stuff like that, they can be a lot more vulnerable as well.
And it goes to show how widespread our movement is and our message, the fact that we were so diverse in age and crowd. And
that's what one of the things I wanted to ask you as well. So it was a wide variety of people all across the spectrum, essentially.
A wide variety.
Women, old, young.
Exactly. All cultures, men, women, old, young. They were all participating in this. everyone felt it relevant to use their power, their voice, and their duty to fight against the war machine. The weapons that were being expoed were absolutely disgusting. BAE Systems, Lockheed Martin, they're all expoing, and they quote, new fighter robots that can be sent to the dark and dirty places where they can be trained to shoot anything on sight, anything that moves.
It's quite dystopian, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
When
so
they
dystopian.
have like the robot dogs and drones and that sort of stuff. Like
Exactly.
I think the name of the company is Nova Systems, and they're the company that tests the drones for Elbit Systems, obviously the most notorious Israeli defense contractor. And they were there at the expo.
They were expoing the missiles that killed the Australian aid worker, Zomi.
Frankham,
Yes.
Frankham. Yeah.
They were expoing tanks, which they had to escort into the convention centre at 3 a.m. armed and secured by 100 cops.
Which is just wild as well, because we've talked about this on the show in the past as well. But if you had an Australian citizen killed by any other foreign government, apart from the Zionist entity, essentially, it would be, just diplomatic warfare. The government would go after it. There'd be complete defence of that position. But however, in this circumstance, they can essentially, expo products by that same company.
Exactly.
And there's no issue with that. I think.
One slogan.
And that's very disturbing to me.
That's true.
I find,
One slogan that we consistently used, and the media intentionally did not put in their coverage, was money for health and education, and not wars and occupation.
That's great.
That was our slogan. It didn't make it.
Of course.
None of our slogans made it, in fact, on the media.
Well, I'd just add that this expo was sponsored by the Australian military and the Victorian government as well.
Perfect.
Well, like you said, it was
So it's very
bringing a $40 million economic boost. That's fantastic. Yeah.
I know Israeli delegates were granted special security and escort into the convention center. And these are the same Israeli delegates that essentially come out and beg for weapons to use on Palestinians to battle test. It gets battle tested in Gaza. Right now in Palestine, in Gaza, they're using weapons that completely obliterate someone's entire body. They cease to exist. And these weapons come from our backyard, our businesses. Australia, at the end of the day, like US, is based on and built on corporations that are very, very destructive. And these are one of the most powerful voices in how to organize society, how to run our economic system, all of that. And we on the ground, people on the ground at Disrupt Land Forces were putting their body, their health, their safety on the line for that. And police met them with lots of force. So lots of arrests happened. People were getting bashed. People were getting skull dragged. People were getting hit with batons, pepper sprayed, stun grenade, tear gassed.
But it also, I think as well, it shows that this message is getting out there. Because there were that many people, they were that organised, and it was that much of a threat that they did have to have this massive, aggressive police presence there. So I guess that it almost to an extent kind of vindicates the work that, you guys are doing as well, I think, which is good.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's very telling how the police response was to our protest in comparison to the neo-Nazi rallies that occur in Melbourne. Police just stand there. Watch, and in comparison to the anti-vax rallies,
of course,
which put people in danger, into all of that. So it was successful because we caused disruption. We made the delegates uncomfortable. We sent a very strong anti-war message to the government, to Albanese, who was also very upset with the protesters. And his comments were that you don't throw things at cops. You don't.
So how did the day...
He was upset. Poor Anthony Albanese. Sorry.
How did the day conclude? How did it finish up?
We broke the police line. The riot squad left. They walked off.
Wow.
On their horses, they left. We cheered on because we stood our ground. They left, and there was only I don't know what it's called. It's the orange construction kind of barricade thing. That was there, and a line of Vicpol behind it. Riot police left. Australian Federal Police left. We all celebrated. Happy days. It was a success. At this point, it was 3 p.m.
So the expo was still going? It was like the
expo was still going, yes. People decided that it's time for a break until you come back to the closing time, which is 6 p.m., and then come and protest. That's what people did. People had injuries. People had to go look after their friends who were taken to watch houses that were arrested. People needed to eat and refuel themselves. People still needed to go decontaminate. And that's where, I guess, the most chaotic part of Disrupt Land Forces ended, at around 3 p.m. that day. Started at 6 p.m., ended at 3 p.m.
Wow. That's a big day.
A very big day.
That's a big day.
It was. I have blisters. I had blisters on my feet.
Oh, goodness,
Yeah, it was... I forgot to look at the steps of that day, but I'm sure it was a lot.
Yeah, it would have been.
Now that I think about it, yeah.
A few calories were burnt.
A few calories were burnt. It was a workout. It was... Then we went back to Seafarers. And people were eating food, people were debriefing, and then suddenly someone comes in saying, "Cops are here with a warrant." Oh. And everyone gets up and leaves because it could have been an arrest warrant, it could have been a search warrant. Get up and leave. They disrupted the downtime, the debrief session at Seafarers. From my knowledge, no one was arrested at Seafarers, but they did come and ransack. They did come and just turn everything upside down. Yep. Hoping to find, I don't know, the weapons that we must have taken from the convention centre. I don't know what they expected to find.
Yeah, maybe. So purely as an intimidation tactic.
Purely intimidation. And then that night on the news, there were acid attacks on the police. And everyone was shocked. What acid? It was milk. Milk is acidic.
Oh, so it was milk?
It was milk.
Okay, I heard the reports whether it was orange juice. At first it was acid, and then a couple of hours later that changed to orange juice, and you believe it was milk?
I believe it was milk.
Okay.
But both are acidic, and they...
Yeah.
Hence the acid attacks.
And Sky News ran with that.
Oh, of course.
They loved that.
Yes. Yeah. Again, the paragons of Australian journalism. Sky News.
The Zionist lobby groups were crying, chest beating that the jihad movement has come to Australia and everyone's freedom is in danger.
Yeah. Well, as I said, the police probably raided you thinking they were going to find some Islamist flags or something. Or
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a bust of Hassan Nasrallah or something. You know.
Some sort of manifesto on how to bring Sharia law into
literally.
Australia.
I'm sorry you had to disappoint them in that regard.
So after the raid, did you return back to the hostel, or
at that point I went home?
Okay,
because it was like 5 p.m. I said it's a wrap. Tomorrow the day starts at 7 a.m. again. So I went home, and here's the thing: a few people, including myself, were followed home by police helicopters above our heads.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. They've been tracking everyone.
Yeah.
That's an amazing use of resources.
It really is.
That's an incredible use. That'd be a lot of money to get police helicopters in the air for that many hours. That's
I often wonder what they think I have.
Yeah.
Because I'm just a girl. Really.
Yeah.
Nothing. I have nothing.
I guess you should be flattered though at the same time.
Oh, I'm very flattered. Thank you for the attention.
You strike fear into the hearts of all the...
As you said though, it's really about intimidation and control.
That's true.
Yeah.
And we resisted.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to bow down and accept weapons conferences to happen.
Yeah.
We're not going to accept that in the face of a genocide. 12 months in, we're not going to allow the Australian government to be complicit.
Yeah. So day 2?
Yes, day 2.
You went to that as well, or?
Day 2, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Marches, we met at the train station, a lot of us, and we were just under 1,000 marching the streets. The main event was to start off at 5 p.m. to be there for the closing. And that's so the morning marches, I found out later, were just autonomous actions planned. And we were a few hundred. And it was really good. It was really empowering. So we went, this time the police were ready. They had barricaded way further than the entrances of the convention centre. When we got there, police were there. We gave speeches. Media was there. And then the police started kettling us in from the other side. And then we were ordered to remove protective gear because it's a face covering. And then they took out their pepper spray. So really? So
Wow. Those bastards.
I know. Naturally, we fought back, broke the police horse line, ran away. And they didn't get to pepper spray us. But however, still pathetic, still a gross exercise of power.
That's a low blow as well.
It really is.
Like a scumbag move, I
think.
Yeah.
And their special powers granted them the right to ask us to remove any sort of face covering, which I wouldn't even call transparent goggles face covering. No. But they decided it was.
Yeah.
I remember one instance that really broke my heart. It really broke my heart. There was a pregnant lady that was walking by herself, and 4 or 5 police just swarmed her. and she had a panic attack from it and fainted.
Oh.
Was she part of the demonstration, or was she just walking?
She was related to someone that was part of the demonstration,
Okay.
but she was not part of the protest. She
Yeah.
was not protesting. She was far away, coming out of a coffee shop. She was
Wow.
7-8 months pregnant,
Oh, no.
and she fell to the ground in a panicking. And that's when the police realized, oh no, we've done something.
Yeah.
Wrong.
So my
This
friend
might
who was
not
a
look
nurse,
good.
who's a nurse and was with me at the point, runs to go assist, and he's got a keffiyeh around his neck. And then the police turns like, oh, can I have your blanket, please? I'm like, it's a keffiyeh anyway. At this point, it's just a one-up from calling it a tea towel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, can I have your picnic rug, please? Like,
Oh, no.
Anyway, the ambulance arrives. Her partner rushes back from the protest, obviously distressed. She gets taken away into the ambulance. Really, it was not necessary for 5-6 police officers to go into one pregnant lady by herself. Why? I completely blame them. One police officer, fine, go ask what you're planning to do to the at the protest, if you must. And this just goes to show that actually how the police were treating us, the levels of violence that were inflicted on the protesters, was not accurately represented in media.
No.
Media showed minutes of a chaotic scene, and that was even before I got pummeled. And media didn't capture that. However, the police the entire day were brutalizing and antagonizing us, and protesters had every right to defend themselves against police violence. We were unarmed. They were armed to the teeth. They have legal protections. They have state backing. We were just people being anti-war protesters, despite media calling us violent anarchists causing havoc.
Yeah.
How many protesters got arrested?
Oh, more than 100.
Yeah.
More than 100 protesters got... and police are still looking for certain protesters
Wow.
that are masked up.
But again, if they weren't doing anything illegal,
Exactly.
what's the justification? You know,
Exactly.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, the justification is to suppress the dissent against Australia's profit chain, which is war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting as well, because I think lots of kind of Australians, or lots of people in Australia might think that, like America, they make weapons, the American military-industrial complex, but people aren't as aware that we are quite a strong link in that chain as well.
Yeah,
And
we're a growing link as well.
A growing link,
yeah,
yes, of
it's just
course.
going to keep growing.
And that's a way, I guess, to, again, insulate yourself against the possible effects of that is by making yourself more integrated into the kind of the global weapons
Well, that's
supply chain,
right.
I guess.
Albanese, Peter Malinauskas, Peter Hoy, the Vice-Chancellor of Adelaide University, recently signed into a $60 million deal bringing BAE systems attached to Lot 14, which is Adelaide University's backyard.
Yeah.
And we're very much integrated.
And the
with
more,
the
the
industry.
more integrated you are, then I guess the more you're economically reliant on that trade as well. So
That's true.
And then if you're a politician or someone who wants to make reforms or change, you can't sacrifice this X amount of millions of dollars that we're bringing in every year to the economy. So it's a scary kind of dark road.
Yeah, it is. And I think it shows how pathetic some of our economic and policy planners are.
Yeah, definitely.
This is their plan for economic growth. It's,
in Australia.
Yeah, let's build a huge weapons industry here and tie ourselves into the American war machine.
That's true, and it's a form of coercion to Australian workers, because if the only options is to come into defence to have an income to survive and to live, you become complicit without wanting to. It's a form of coercion. If that's the only job you can get, of course people must.
Yeah, and we've talked about that as well. For example, if you're like a young person, you've done an engineering degree or something like that, or you have like a trade and you want to kind of specialise in a field, in SA, there aren't really many high-paying jobs apart from, your BAEs and your Raytheons and your Lockheed Martins and stuff. So it does...
We actually associated and know lots of people that go into the trades or do an engineering degree, and that is the pathway to have a decent career, make money, is to go into the weapons industry. You go from being a refrigeration mechanic to working for a
BAE or something
a
like
merchant
that.
of death, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite sad. It really is.
But again, it just shows, I guess, the lack of kind of skilled economic planning.
Yeah, or just sophisticated,
diversity
and just creativity.
creativity as well.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And despite this, Australia has maintained its longest anti-war movement of past 1 year of Palestine protests happening
Yeah.
It is amazing.
weekly.
Yeah.
And we're not going to stop. In the face of Israel's extended genocidal campaign into Lebanon and a regional war.
Well, even like I guess the protests that kind of symbolised 1 year, kind of around, 1 year after October 7th. It's amazing how many people did turn out as well. Like the numbers were crazy, and it's also I think shown that there is people are still motivated and people aren't. Because lots of the time with protests, you think, oh, look, the support for these movements kind of fizzles off over time. But obviously now we're seeing that they're only getting stronger, I think, which is quite important.
That's true.
Actually, we caught wind of something that happened with you, an altercation with the South Australian Premier, Peter Malley.
Oh, yes.
Would you care to share?
Me and the State Premier are working on our relationship at the moment.
That's great.
We are. He avoids me. He runs away from me.
Yeah.
He doesn't like to answer my questions, and I like to pursue answers from him.
You are very intimidating.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's a relationship that you're working on.
Yeah.
Yes. I would like him to come and provide answers to me. I would like him to keep up with some of his promises, but he feels that it's not a commitment as a premier. So that's hence the tension in our relationship at the moment.
Okay.
I did have an altercation with him. He has been silent and absent for the past 1 year of people in South Australia and Adelaide gathering on the Parliament House steps, demanding, begging, protesting, asking for Australia to take reasonable and good action towards Israel's genocide, cutting military ties, cutting diplomatic ties. It is an international war crime to supply weapons to a genocidal state, and Israel is a genocidal state. They've been taken to the ICJ for genocide.
They openly admitted as well. Well, their politicians
Exactly.
admitted on their own.
Exactly. And Peter Malinauskas has made efforts to sit with Zionists. He has not made any efforts, proper or reasonable, genuine efforts to sit with the Islamic community or the Arab community that are really, really affected by this. Increased Islamophobia. He had one little session with Islamic Society. However, he even failed to answer questions in that, and he's been asked and requested to come and meet with us many, many more times, to which he's ignored. So I saw him partying at Save the Cranker, acting like he's a hero, pretending that this is the cause of the people, that he really is the number one face of democracy and justice. And that freedom fighter, Peter Malinauskas' father as well, footy player, he loves barbecues or whatever.
He has a good marketing team.
He does.
But it was quite funny, just to our audience as well. There was a pub, a popular music venue in SA that was going to be closed down. I think they were looking at developing the land, and there was heaps of public outcry about it, and all the kind of, the artists and the musicians came together, and there was a big protest, and it happened to be on the same day as a protest out the front of Government House, a pro-Palestine protest. And so the two protests ended up kind of joining together essentially, and it was amazing how it had all been speculated. Well, we're going to try and obviously fight to save this historic venue in South Australia, and then Peter Malinauskas came out at the end of the protest, again, like you said, hero of the people, fighting for the people, and came out, and in one fell political swoop, we're going to save it, don't worry guys. And I saw that, and that made so many things lined up for me in my head. I thought, wow, this whole thing was just an orchestrated political ploy by him. It was incredible. Wow. But
it's insane to protest genocide, and then immediately a truck of musicians rolls in, led by the state premier.
It was bizarre.
Over an issue that's already been solved. The Save the Cranker had already been saved.
But I guess it was, for them, it was just the perfect... it was just the perfect ploy, essentially, to pull that political move. Wow.
Exactly.
He did it, I think, for self-promotion as well, because a lot of people in the Labor Party, there were members that were quite angry because he had privately went into negotiations with the developer without telling members of the Labor Party. And so I think there's definitely...
That sounds about right.
Yeah, he did it for himself, for his public image, for sure.
Definitely.
He did. Yeah. And then I took it as an opportunity and a responsibility to
catch up with your old friend.
To catch up with him.
To build your relationship.
Exactly. He was there. We ran into each other.
Yeah.
Good times. So I went up to him. He did walk away and ignore me. So I said, that's not nice. And I ran up after him. I said, Peter. Eventually he stopped. I said, why aren't you talking with us? He's like, well, actually I have. And I said, no, you haven't. I would like you to answer our questions. I said, you condemn Israel for the use of white phosphorus, which is a war crime, which actually the UN has condemned them for.
Yeah.
Not that that means anything at this point. He remained silent. Peter, tight-lipped, Kat got his tongue. I felt bad for my friend. You know, he was nervous, panic attack, stressed out. So I gave him another question. I said that was too hard.
Yeah.
Do you condemn the killing of children? Silence. He couldn't answer it. Back and forth, he was stressed out. And then... Poor guy. And then his buddies, the cops, saved him, pulled me aside. And then he went up on stage to deliver a speech.
Wow.
And at this point, I'm like, oh, he's gained his confidence back. He's over his panic attack. Cat found his tongue. Let me try again. And I got on, because it was really loud. I had to use my megaphone. I said, Peter, you have a responsibility. To which he does. I needed good friends remind each other of their responsibilities.
Of course.
Good friends
Yeah.
help each other become better.
Exactly.
Exactly. I didn't get very far. The police confiscated my megaphone.
Aww.
Got dragged out in front of a crowd of what was thousands.
Yeah. Wow.
And he has yet to come back to me. However, I will tell you, a few days later on his social media, he appeared to be at an Islamic center talking to people.
That's good.
And then my mom said, oh, he went there to find you. She really believed that. I said, no, he didn't.
No.
He didn't go to find me. No, it was a book week at one of the Muslim schools. It wasn't even a center.
Okay.
And by the way, like, I believe our mosques and our centers should only invite politicians if these politicians genuinely work in the favor of the community and not to only attend to exploit the community. So Peter and I have more catching up to do. I feel he owes me an apology. It was really rude of him.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this really demonstrates kind of, I guess, the political ploy that he's playing, because when the Russia-Ukraine conflict broke out, he went and met with delegates of the Ukrainian community, and
Absolutely.
he was on the steps of Parliament House with a huge delegation of pro-Ukrainians waving Ukrainian flags. So he's not scared to get involved in foreign conflicts and share his opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's not.
I wonder if it's an ideological thing, or if it's a political thing, or if he is ideologically. Because I do struggle to feel that any self-respecting person could be ideologically aligned with the Israelis and what they're doing. But maybe it is. Maybe that is an aspect to it.
Yeah, but look at the entire Labor Party. None of them have come out and joined in any of the pro-Palestinian demonstrations. They haven't spoke to any of the organisers of the movement.
No, of course.
They wouldn't even be seen standing in front of a Palestinian flag.
Exactly.
That is true.
And I think it goes to show how entrenched Zionism is in our system. And it's worth reflecting on how democratic we are as a country.
Well, again, yeah, and as well, even with Peter Malinauskas, I mean, he's the premier of our state, so he does represent you, supposedly. And, yeah. Maybe your relationship needs to be worked on a little bit more.
I think so. I still invite him to come talk to me. You know, he condemned my organising and protests for October 6th and 7th. He said it was insensitive. I think relationships are built on good communication, so why did you tell that to the media, not to me? Come talk to me, Peter. And I said that back to the media. I said, hey, I invite him to attend and convince me why it's insensitive.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, if you're listening to Habibah,
Please.
we were just discussing about the resistance to Zionism here at home in Australia. But how about we maybe go abroad and discuss about the ongoing international resistance to Zionism?
That's right.
And what has been unfolding in the Middle East over the past couple of weeks and months now. Did you want to maybe share your thoughts, Habibah?
Well, number one, armed resistance is a human right.
Yep.
And people have every single right to resist occupation with violence as declared and stated by the UN. So
I believe it's an obligation.
An obligation.
It's an obligation to resist
There
occupation.
you go.
Yes.
There you go.
And as is an obligation for Israel to cease the occupation.
Exactly, yeah.
Correct.
That's very interesting.
Yes.
Well, I wanted your thoughts first, actually. What was your reaction to finding out Israel had invaded Lebanon, Israel bombed Beirut, went into Lebanon?
Well, I think you could tell when they started going after the Hamas commanders. There was the pager attack, which was a blatant example of just indiscriminate terrorism, I think, against a civilian population. And then obviously there was the bombing campaigns, where it was lots of the southern villages in Lebanon. Then obviously they started bombing Beirut after that. But this all comes after, obviously, you had the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. and you've had kind of a whole bunch of other provocations as well. So from my point of view, I found that it seemed like they really were trying to escalate it and kind of expand their conflict into, more of a regional thing.
We had been saying this week after week, just like the restraint that the axis of resistance is showing right now, not to give Israel what it wants, is to justify and allow them to start a brutal bombing campaign in Lebanon or to bomb Iran openly and try and pull the US into a greater conflict.
Yeah.
And that's when Hassan Nasrallah was assassinated. On a Friday evening, I was reading the news. I was reading, I think, The Guardian live report, just kind of hour by hour trying to keep up. And the Israelis said that they had assassinated him in Beirut. And I just said, this is Zionist propaganda, let's be honest. I don't think that he is going to leave himself open to a position to be assassinated like that. And then
we also had a few other sources as well that we know, personal sources saying that they'd heard this had happened from on the ground in Lebanon. So. Yeah,
we had heard from someone that he'd been assassinated, and then I was just kind of, part of me went, I'm not so sure. And then obviously Hezbollah had confirmed that. I think it was Saturday morning, or it was that Friday night they'd confirmed it. So, and that's when I think that for me was the turning point. I was like, oh no, they don't give a fuck anymore. It is just all guns blazing. They're going to go just start indiscriminately bombing Beirut. And up to that point, I didn't think that they were going to escalate past that. I just didn't think they were going to do it. Obviously, they had, ministers have said that we're going to turn Beirut into Gaza. We're going to wipe it off the face of the earth. And obviously when you hear those things, you think, okay, it's a possibility. I just didn't think they were going to take it that far.
They say lots of insane stuff on the day-to-day. So.
Correct.
I think as well it showed that, for example, after a couple months ago, they bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus.
Yes.
And then, obviously, in my opinion, that was an act of provocation. And then so the Iranians responded, but they responded in a way that would kind of limit the escalation. So they said, we're going to give you X amount of hours of notice. We're going to be sending these drones and these missiles towards you. We're going to give you like 2 days notice or whatever so you can prepare, but just so that we can save face and you guys can save face as well. And so we don't actually do a lot of damage. And I thought that was quite a really intelligent way to respond. And then obviously after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh as well, they didn't respond straight away, and I think there was probably quite a bit of deliberation. And
then Hassan Nasrallah was assassinated, and then we were kind of like, okay, well, there's going to be a response, and there was obviously global speculation they're going to respond, and it took a couple of weeks, about a fortnight, but they responded, as everyone saw.
Everyone knows, yes. Yeah. And obviously, it's quite funny as well because they launched I think it was about 200 ballistic missiles. Is what is the accepted number. But it was hilarious because they didn't. I don't think the Israelis reported any casualties. There was one casualty reported was one Palestinian man in the West Bank who was killed by falling debris. Yeah. However, I think it shows that even if I don't think they actually were aiming to kill anyone. I think that was quite obvious. I think their aim, unlike the aim of the Zionists, which is just to kill and destroy everything, their aim was to specifically target, I believe it's the Nevatim Air Base, which is one airbase, and some other military infrastructure in Israel as well. And I think they did that quite successfully and showed that, hey, we can break the Iron Dome. But from the way the media reported it, again, you would have thought that in Australia that Iran was just, indiscriminately lobbing missiles into Israel. Yeah. And it kind of turned out to not be the case. And I think that also shows quite a difference in mentality in the way they will fight each other as well.
It's much more precise and targeted.
Much more precise. But ever since then as well, we've seen the Israelis coming out, and we're still kind of waiting to see what's going to happen because they've come out and said, we're going to hit Iran. And then I believe the Americans have said, well, maybe not the best idea to go after Iran, but then the Iranians have said, no, look, we've been so restrained. Like, if you do this now, then we will going to hit back very, very hard. And I think
that's true.
Which is, it's kind of, I don't want to say exciting is the right word, but it really, you kind of, after you've been following this for a while, I find myself personally, I really want to see how it progresses.
Oh, we're all on edge.
We're all on edge, yes. Exactly. It's not good. Nothing good. It's getting worse and worse, obviously.
Lebanon was the turning point.
That's true.
It really was. Especially when they just started bombing the apartments in Beirut and levelling them. That's when I just went, nothing's going to stop them.
That's true. Just when you think Israel cannot exceed its level of oppression, it will find a way to exceed. They will break the glass ceiling of oppression every single day. And it's amazing. So, yes, the killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran was a war crime. They it was considered a form of invasion. Sorry.
No, all good.
The killing of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran was a war crime. It's considered a form of invading Iran's sovereignty, and Israel had no right to do so. And then the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, I was the same. I was not believing it at first. I said, Zionist garbage, Zionist propaganda, fighting with people all day, until Hezbollah confirmed it. And to be very honest, whatever you think of Hassan Nasrallah, you cannot deny all the work he's done for Palestine, all the solidarity he has committed and achieved, especially executing and engineering plans that liberated South Lebanon from Israel's 22-year-long occupation. And being a designated terrorist, especially from the West, means absolutely nothing.
No. Well, I've made this correlation previously that I think a lot of the Lebanese and people that aren't Lebanese do see him as kind of a Ho Chi Minh figure to Lebanon.
That's true.
As he is a national liberator.
What you don't also see on the media is so many protests broke out condemning Israel for killing him. From Kashmir, within Lebanon, within Iran, Iraq, Syria, basically the axis of resistance.
I saw it in Bahrain, in Tunisia.
In Bahrain, that's right. Tunisia,
crazy
exactly.
Stuff. Yeah.
A lot of people were very upset because a lot of people looked at him as a revolutionary leader, a political leader, and a father figure. And the news of his death upset me. Is that all right to say?
Of course, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
You're allowed to say that.
All right.
No, I think you're all right to say that. Yeah.
It really upset me because
you're emotional about it.
I was one of those people.
Yeah.
I was one of those people, and I disagree and oppose the West calling him a designated terrorist, just as they have done so with Malcolm X in the past.
Nelson Mandela
in the past, as the advertiser were really upset when I made that comparison.
And it is interesting as well because obviously the Western kind of nations designate Hezbollah as a terrorist organisation, but the majority of the world, like the rest of the world that isn't white, so do we say, does not designate them as a terrorist organisation.
Exactly.
So you've got, 6 billion people versus 1.5,
That's right.
so it's not representative.
The rest of the world sees them as resistance and freedom fighters. And at this point, they had already been bombing Beirut.
Yeah.
The pager terrorist attack had happened. And to be very honest, this goes to show what kind of man Hassan Nasrallah was. He was chilling in Dahiyah in Beirut, in one of the central suburbs, when he was killed and assassinated. You would think someone like him, a high-profile figure, would be in a secure location, hidden away.
Yeah.
Nope, he was there, and he was in an organizing meeting for the displaced of Dahiyah neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so people were shaken. People were very upset. I saw the live reaction of this Lebanese journalist, Marwa Usman, who, in a live interview, found out the death of Hassan Nasrallah. She lost it. She absolutely lost it. It goes to show he was a very loved person within Lebanon. Yeah, Israel has escalated this, and they keep pushing boundaries. I think that this is Benjamin Netanyahu's last hurrah. I feel as though as soon as the war stops, as the genocide stops, he knows he's no longer going to be in power.
He'll probably be arrested.
He'll be a goner, exactly.
Yeah.
And he just wants to keep pushing. He wants to keep pushing. However, Israel's military is not that powerful. They only have the backing of equipment from the US. The past year, from October 2023 to October 2024, the US had sent them $100 billion of military aid alone.
Wow. Yeah. And I guess, and they obviously use that because they have air superiority.
Yes.
And so that's what they use is just to pummel civilian populations primarily from the air, and then their armed forces on the ground still can't.
So
their armed forces are conscription idiots.
Yeah.
And so when they invaded South Lebanon, they made it to 100 meters and then they got smashed by Hezbollah, who are trained guerrilla fighters. And then helicopters had to come and take away their killed and injured, and now they're crying about it.
But even in the Gaza Strip itself, they still haven't defeated Hamas.
No, they haven't.
They still cannot actually
Hamas membership has increased since October last year. They're not going to win this war. They're not.
No.
So that's why they're going ruthless. And Iran did retaliate. Iran sent 200 ballistic missiles targeting their military bases, 0 civilian deaths, to which the Zionists were mocking it, saying, you didn't kill any of us.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show what they value in warfare compared to what the axis of resistance does. Iran practiced their legal right, Article 51 of the UN Charter of self-defense. They did it. It took a while. I myself was waiting to see what would happen because they had promised retaliation. However, during that period, Iran's president died and a new one came. And then with the new one, it was that he was trying to reach a permanent ceasefire deal as a deal to not retaliate. But after the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, the Supreme Leader said, Ali Khamenei stepped in and said, no, we have to retaliate. Yeah. And they did.
Well, I believe...
Can I say, while we're talking about Iran and about its politics, can you share much about Iranian politics with us, Habibah? Are you well traversed?
Absolutely. The Islamic Revolution happened in 79, kicking out the Shah, which was a US-installed puppet.
Yeah.
Since 58, when they overthrew the democratically elected president Mossadegh after nationalizing oil.
Yeah.
And then the revolution happened. Khomeini was one of the leaders of that revolution. And despite government corruption, which exists in all countries, and I absolutely accept and admit this, Iran's role as the axis of resistance is something I fully support and stand by, because their revolution kicked out American hegemony. And in turn, Iran has also helped defeat ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Iran supports Lebanon and Syria. Iran supports Iraq with trying to fight for their own sovereignty, essentially. And so the role of its axis of resistance, it's certain revolutionary figures I support. I don't have much comments on the government. I know that overall, at the end of the day, capitalism as a whole should be wiped out, in my opinion, from... are the face of the earth in all economic systems, and this is the number one source of corruption. I can't stand by that. I don't. However, knowing full well the role of revolutionaries, the role of Basij, the IRGC, in fighting against Saddam's imposed war on them, and furthermore, how they've been sanctioned continuously, how they've been attacked by the media continuously, the Islamophobia, the Orientalism, that country has gone through a lot. The revolutionary youth that I know exists there is alive and well and dynamic, and they believe in creating a good future for themselves, and they believe in their self-determination, which is something I completely stand behind. At the same time, they believe it as a responsibility to help the resistance movements in that entire region, and they do. And so, while I'm not a staunch supporter of any governments, I'm really not. I stand by the revolutionary leaders such as Nasrallah and Khamenei.
So there's it's good to understand the nuance there.
Yeah, that was a very good analysis.
No, it was. I really appreciate that. I said there was just moves as well by the Liberal Party to try and list the IRGC, which is the Iranian military, as a terrorist organisation.
They always do that. They've always tried. I hope they don't succeed.
I think the Liberal
Party, but it just shows where
terrorist organisation.
Exactly. You can't just always designate your enemies as terrorists.
No, it's so
you can't.
I just think it's so childish.
It is.
Is that you disagree with someone? You're a terrorist. Let's put you on a list.
But it's also as well. I think it shows there's no.
It's like a naughty and like a naughty.
It's a naughty corner. Time out.
These are my friends. These aren't my friends.
Yeah, you're getting coal for Christmas. You're getting presents for Christmas. But I think as well. I think it's pretty clear that it's not based as well on. It is based on geopolitical interests and like imperialist interests, because it's not really based on. Because obviously they can complain about. Like a common thing in the West is women's rights in Iran, for example. That's something that's kind of weaponized. However, no one ever talks about women's rights in Saudi Arabia, which are far more restricted than women's rights. And to my knowledge, Iran's actually a pretty progressive society with lots of minorities and
very progressive,
lots of different religions, and
women dominate STEM in Iran.
Yes, we know.
I remember one of the propagandas about Iran was that women aren't allowed in sports stadiums, women can't do sport. But yet, like, you have Iranian women go to the Olympics. Please explain that to me.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
You don't see the Saudi Arabian women's softball team.
No, you don't, exactly. But Saudi is an ally to the West. And I kept having to make this argument a few years back, is look at what so-called bringing women's rights did to Afghanistan.
Yes. Well, nothing brings rights better to women than, like, carpet bombing.
Exactly.
Women and children. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. And the sanctions that kill civilians, they harm civilians. They're not going to hurt the government, but this is what they've tried to propagate with their protests here against Iran.
Yeah, definitely. Even same with that, it's kind of the classic Zionist argument. Benjamin Netanyahu saying gays for Gaza is like saying chickens for KFC. Or, and it's like, again, the same thing is, man, how many gays and women have you and children have you guys killed in your onslaught?
The other one was like the hang gays from Cranes and Tehran.
And that's not even true. They don't have time.
No. They're trying to run the country, man.
Exactly.
Way more important.
It's just that caricature.
Yeah.
The pinkwashing.
These, extreme anti-gay murderers.
Yeah. Exactly. These mullahs, they will take away away your freedom. Well, that's what Andrew Bolt has said. He's made a case for this, essentially.
Yeah.
Page 13 of the Advertiser article on the October 8th issue, please. I would like to quote him.
Yes.
Well, please bring us in, Habibah. You have this wonderful quote by the great, skillful journalist that is Andrew Bolt, Australia's greatest journalist.
So Andrew Bolt, a few years ago, went on Sky News and said Habibah Joguri is a hard left Islamist.
Has he mentioned you by name?
Oh yes, he knows me.
So you haven't. So not only with the South Australian Premier, but with Australia's greatest journalist, you have a intimate personal relationship.
Very intimate. Alongside David Aller, the president of Australian Jewish Association, biggest Zionist lobby groups. They they debated me on Sky News.
You have some high-profile friendships.
I'm very lucky. He goes to say, here's how to tell if the anti-Israel protester in your life is an idiot. An ignorant hypocrite who is a menace to our own civilization as much as Israel's. They claim Israel is a colonial power. False. It is instead Islam that is the colonial power. Love that. Number one, Islam is a religion, Andrew. It's not a system. These are the politicians that will have everything to say about human rights in Iran.
Yeah.
And here they just regurgitate extremely racist, inaccurate propaganda.
Ahistorical,
afactual, ageographical, ascience, alogic. Good man.
Yeah, good man. Funnily enough, just a quick side note as well, speaking of the whole gay rights thing, I believe Itamar Ben-Gvir, who we are all very familiar with, came out openly and said, I'm a fascist and I'm a homophobe and I don't care who knows it, as well, in a speech. Before October 7th, actually, but he did say that pretty much.
He did say that.
Yeah, so, again,
Israeli soldiers have proudly said, I'm a racist and I hate Sudanese people. Wow. To a crowd of clapping people.
And also, was it yesterday in an interview for a documentary? Was it Bezalel Smotrich?
Have you seen this?
Have you seen this?
No.
Just yesterday.
Smotrich came out and he was explaining his idea of the Greater Israel, and they were like, he's like, look, it starts in Jerusalem, but we'll get to Damascus. And then we'll move on from there. And the lady's like, oh, really? Is this the plan? And he goes, slowly. Not straight away, but that's the idea.
He didn't just say Damascus. He said as well, he said Egypt, Saudi Arabia.
Lebanon.
Lebanon laid the full thing out.
Oh, yeah. Netanyahu, when he presented to the UN the curse, the blessing, in which Iran and Lebanon were the curse.
It was like Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon,
and the choice of colours as well. The picture of Israel, and it's in green, and then he has the other placard,
black.
And it's just black.
It's like, green good, black bad.
The curse and the blessing. This is the state of our world.
Yeah, it's
really.
Well, where do you think? What do you foresee for the future, Habibah?
Israel's not going to win at all. This is their last hurrah. They will never succeed in Lebanon. They are not succeeding in Gaza. There's mass awakenings happening all around the world to the disgusting project that is Israel. Protests have continued. The pressure is really, really there. I think Palestine will be free in our lifetime. Yep. And I say that from the river to the sea. Israel is not going to last much longer. The analysis of certain people that now have been killed on Israel is that they are weaker than a spider's web. And this is very thoughtful. This is a very clear understanding of what they are. If you look at Israel on the map, it is literally smaller than the half of Iran. Very, very small, which actually breaks your heart because how small would the Gaza Strip be? It's smaller than half of Adelaide. In one move practiced by the Axis of Resistance, they can militarily be wiped out and their genocide campaign can end. And I believe this is going to happen soon. Yemen has been very staunch in retaliating and stopping Israeli ships and weapons reaching their ports. Hezbollah have released statements daily saying that we're still very strong. We're not going to stop. Hamas are fighting back. In Iran, they're going to say, if you bomb us again, this time you're a goner. And they're threatening to bomb. However, Iran still has other roles in supporting the Axis of Resistance in different ways, apart from getting directly involved. Because if it does so, the world will be like, oh, this is a war between Iran and Israel. It has nothing got to do with me.
Yeah.
What concerns me, though, is that they're going to be successful in wiping Gaza out, in the sense that the people there, the Palestinian people, aren't going to be able to return to their homes and they're going to expand and build settlements there. I'm definitely concerned that that's a possibility, and I'm not sure if we're going to see a diplomatic settlement in the next couple of weeks or months. And
I don't think
what
that'll be a
concerns me
diplomatic
is that this will
resolution.
keep happening indefinitely into the future. There might be a ceasefire with Lebanon per se, but I'm worried about what's going to happen to Gaza and what's going to happen in the West Bank, because I don't see that stopping anytime soon, especially being protected by America, being
That's
able
true.
to keep financing them, providing them weapons. And I'm wondering, do you think there's going to be a sort of two-state settlement? Obviously, other people, for example, Anthony Lowenstein, who's a Australian Jewish journalist here, who I'm quite fond of, he has advocated a one-state solution because he thinks to end the occupation, you have to have equal rights, you need to have one vote for one citizen. Do you see, in your personal opinion, either of those things happening?
What you say about Gaza is really heartbreaking. Because
It
just
is.
today, I read the news that today they're saying it was the worst day on Gaza since the start of the genocide. It was another carpet bombing campaign. They targeted 6-7 hospitals at the same time. And then they went in and started shooting anyone that was still alive.
Yeah.
The death toll keeps increasing. And the Lancet report's conservative estimate is now 300k.
Yeah.
So while that's still happening, it's very doom and gloom and despair.
Yeah.
Just think to yourself, if they haven't succeeded yet, now that they're confronting so much more, how can they succeed? It's good. It's really good to maintain that positive hope. We saw Israelis booking boat tours to go see the destruction in Gaza.
That was
And
pretty
then-
messed up.
They faced their retaliation, and then the settlers fled. So much more settlers fled. Settlers are fleeing every single day. The north of occupied Palestine, which is on the border of South Lebanon, I would say is liberated. Because they're not coming back. They're not. Yes. What was your other question?
I was saying, do you think there's going to be a two-state
Yes.
settlement?
Well,
do you think it's going to
I can't. I don't
No.
know. I don't know why you need two Palestines.
Exactly. If you insist. No, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. One state, democratic state,
Yeah.
equal rights for all.
So a one-state solution.
A one-state
per se.
solution,
Yeah.
Christian, Muslim, Jewish,
Yeah.
and the people of Palestine, the indigenous people of Palestine, get to have a referendum, a vote,
Yep.
to see what happens with the foreigners that essentially have two citizenships.
Yeah.
All these first-generation New Yorkers and
Yes. Yep.
Polish people,
Yeah.
they can very much leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I believe is going to happen. This is
Yeah.
my solution. Is a one-state solution. And there is only one solution, Intifada revolution.
No, because there's definitely a push now for that for there to be a one-state solution. The only problem I see as well, for example, that countries like America and Australia and Great Britain keep pushing for the idea of a two-state solution, a negotiated two-state solution, which, let's be honest,
It's a fail. It's
the
a
Israelis,
fail one.
they're not going to negotiate in goodwill and actually
Exactly.
allow the Palestinians to have their own sovereign state. It's just
No.
going to be another occupied territory where they block all access from land, sea, air.
Exactly.
They dictate what goes in, what comes out, and they're still occupied. So
Well,
Exactly.
I think the two-state solution has always kind of been just kind of a rhetorical tool to allow
No, it
them
has,
to keep
yeah.
doing
Yeah.
what they're doing
Yeah.
the entire time.
And this has been their answer since the first Intifada, but we've seen things just get gradually worse. Israel has just become this absolute rogue state that no international law can apply to them.
No.
Nothing can contain them, and they just keep being barbaric in their
Yeah.
assaults on humans.
yeah.
So, one-state solution for Palestine, whole Palestine, from the river to the sea.
I saw this morning as well is that they've fired multiple times now at the UN peacekeepers in South Lebanon.
Yes, they have as well. And they've also hidden their tanks amongst the US peacekeepers, so Hezbollah won't shoot at them.
Yeah.
But then they've also, at other times, fired.
And then our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Miss Penny Wong, came out and said, "Don't do that.
Don't do
That's
that.
not nice."
That's not
Naughty
nice.
boy.
She said, "Don't do that. I don't like it."
Yeah.
That's all she said.
Concerned.
Yeah, we are concerned.
We are
with
concerned.
The current developments is what
Yeah.
they like to say.
Current developments.
Yeah.
Did she say, "I'm going to intervene"? No. Did she say, "I'm going to stop supplying these weapons"? No. Did she
No.
say,
Just
"I'm going
not-
to issue an order"? No.
Not
Just
even do we condemn this. It's just we're
No,
concerned.
we're just
We're just
concerning.
Yeah, we're concerned.
I'm glad that she's concerned,
Yeah.
at the very minimum.
Yeah.
at the very minimum.
Oh, well.
Oh boy.
Well, should we wrap it up then? For the
Think
day?
so.
Yes.
Thanks, Habibah. We really
It's-
appreciate you
What a
coming
great
back on.
chat,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you very much. We appreciate the insight, and
As-
you're an inspiration as well
Yeah.
for
Oh.
all the people protesting out there and trying
Yeah.
to fight for something
Yeah.
a bit better. So
Thank you.
A wealth of
I
knowledge,
try.
and we'd like to have you back on in the future.
I'd love to.
definitely.
Please, it would be great to talk with Peter Malinauskas if you can arrange
We'll get him
that.
on.
Well, we could do a 4-way chat, hopefully.
Hopefully.
We'll get Andrew Bolt as well.
Yes, I think so.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you very much.
Good chat, guys. Good chat.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.